I think when you come from academia or from outside the industry, you have an idea of what it's all about. And generally, I think from the outside world, often target discovery is drug discovery. And really, there's so much more that goes on. And, I had the pleasure of working with some absolutely fantastic people who were really at the forefront of bioinformatics or informatics in drug discovery back then. Perhaps I didn't quite articulate, but I'd sort of slid into a more data-driven way during my PhD when I was actually starting to bring together lots of different data sets. And so really, by the end of my PhD, I was completely a dry lab specialist. And then I took that forward at Pfizer and, finding the synergy between the drug discovery problems and the toolkit that I had was really what excited me. And so I worked there through various therapeutic areas. I started off in antivirals, really following the infectious disease theme. And the first drug I worked on was Maraviroc, which was the CCR5 cell surface receptor inhibitor for HIV. And that was a really tremendous experience, really opened my eyes to the whole kind of clinical development paradigm as well as early research. But also whilst there, I think, I kind of got heavily involved in looking at biological networks, how you could use big data sets and represent them within the kind of protein interaction and connectivity maps within the cells to really start to understand what drove disease and how we could intervene. And, back then we pioneered some work along with a fantastic data scientist called Daniel Zemek, called causal reasoning, which was really a method that would help us understand what drove disease if you had these big omics data sets. And, looking back on that now, we would call that a knowledge graph. And so this is one of the latest kind of buzzwords and, if you like, advances in the data science and AI field. But actually, back then, we didn't really have a name for it. But it kind of really set me on a path which has kind of led me to Biorelate now. But obviously, between then and now, after a decade at Pfizer, I joined AstraZeneca. And really that was driven because after the antivirals, I'd been through various sort of human-centric therapeutic areas, including neuroscience, but really wanted to work in oncology. So this gave me an opportunity to move into cancer. And I was really attracted by AstraZeneca's science-first culture, which was tremendous, is still tremendous, and really I really thrived in that. But also oncology is quite special from a data science perspective because the amount of data that is available far outstrips most other places. So you can really do some cool things. And I had so much fun working on a whole load of really cool projects. But AstraZeneca kind of rolled from success to success. So actually my major sort of learning through my AZ time was really a growth in my leadership and management skills. So, I scaled the oncology data science function. When I joined, we were less than 10 people. And then when I left, we were in the hundreds. And, not only did we build out that sort of portfolio bioinformatics piece that really drove data science into the portfolio, we also built and created the computational biology and also the data science and AI functions. And so together, there's now a tremendous capability there for doing data science in drug discovery. And the impact, I think, has been huge. Every single project is touched by that team now. But I'm particularly proud of also having created the AstraZeneca, or helped to create the AstraZeneca internal knowledge graph platform. And again, you'll see the thread, but this really, helped or impacted a lot of the new target discovery work, a lot of the functional genomics work that's done within the oncology company. And, I think is for me personally, is part of that trajectory of where we started 15 years ago at Pfizer, thinking about connections, knowledge graphs, networks, to right up to the cutting or current edge of technology.
It's important to have that level of forethought as well. I would imagine that there are ties all the way through, but I guess if you were to take a look at kind of the places where bioinformatics and AI touch along the complete drug discovery pathway. How does it tie? And tell me a little bit more about the ways that companies are leveraging it. You don't have to go into specifics about AstraZeneca, but just I think it would be helpful for me and the audience to hear a little bit more about how these technologies are being used.
Sure. So, I think there is potential for really broad application of data science and AI in the industry. I think there has been an expectation or a hype that it was going to solve all of the industry's problems, productivity, speed, cost, novelty, etc., all in one sort of big bang, if you like. I think that's really not been the case. And to be honest, those expectations were wildly unrealistic. There are, however, a number of really successful point solutions, if you like, so specific places in the pipeline where data science and AI are making a really tangible impact. And so kind of thinking sort of, from target discovery onwards, I've mentioned knowledge graphs a few times, but I think they're been to date the most successful application of data science methodology to early research. So really helping us to integrate massive data sets into a structure that you can query very readily and then use to make better informed target selection decisions. Then if we go further forward, chemistry and the design of small molecules has been a real pioneer of the application of data science methods to both design potential new small molecules, test their potential binding properties, and also design the synthetic routes for their synthesis. So I think there's been a huge amount of work in chemistry that's really pioneered and led the way. And then we go on, right? Now the real world evidence is having a massive impact in clinical trials and so on. So I think there's huge. There is huge excitement. I think it's right that we're excited about it. I think it's important, though, that we see the full impact of AI as the sum of those point solutions, not as it's just going to magically change everything in one fell swoop. Yeah.
And I just look at. I've been in the room several times with the data scientists, whenever we have kind of a key problem on the diagnostic side. And it just amazes me sort of the level of ability that they have to sort of say, hey, look, this stuff is all noise. We're going to remove that from the picture and take a look at the data, without all the noise. We're going to, and of course they lose things that, that then they wanted to keep, and then they continue to modify and things like that. And I just I think about the future of that, where you could put a brilliant brain that could work through those things, but you could also have AI kind of working through some of the early stuff to just say, hey, look, here's the target that we're looking for. And, let's try and get rid of the things that are not valuable in this picture, but keep the things that are much more valuable as well. And just from the data science side, I think it'd be, even more accelerating and more energizing to be in the room to watch that happen. So yeah, I can only imagine.
Yeah, I think you sort of hit on a really interesting point, which maybe we'll come back to later as well. But the way that we integrate the data science into the culture, the way of working within a pharma company is critical, and having the data science fully paired and fully integrated is critical, but very hard to achieve. And it really doesn't work if you have a bunch of data scientists working in isolation and they come up with some hypothesis and then they chuck it over the fence at a lab team. Because the lab team sit there and go, well, actually, I've just read this Nature paper that told me about this really great diagnostic target or whatever. Why should I follow up with this random data scientist who's just come up with something crazy and I don't really understand versus, what was laid out nicely for me in this paper? So there is a real need to have these systems fully inbuilt, and an understanding almost that data science is going to often produce quite different types of hypotheses, and we need to think differently about how we validate them, how we integrate that into our workflows, and then make a decision as to how to go forward with it. And it's a really interesting piece that actually consumed a lot of my time versus the actual technicalities of data science.
Right.